Mr. Brotman is here. We can get ready for our interview. Mr. Brotman, and we can start a couple minutes early. Maybe we'll end a couple minutes early on the other end.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Brotman, thank you so much for accepting our invitation to be here. Welcome to your interview slot with Glendale Association of Realtors. First, I'm going to give you an overview of our association, followed by a few ground rules, and then after your opening statement, you will receive your first question from our president, and we get started that way. In regards to Glendale Association of Realtors, I believe you are familiar with our history, knowing that we were established back in 1920, about 106 years ago. We are one of the oldest organizations within the city of Glendale. It started with fewer than 70 members, but today we are right around 1,500 members. We have always been a participant in our community. We have helped shaping the community. Realtors have served with distinction as part of the City Council, Chamber of Commerce, Planning Commissions, school boards, and numerous civic bodies within the city, earning recognition for their participation and involvement. In general, giving back is not an afterthought for us. It is part of our organizational DNA. Year after year, Glendale Association has supported local organizations and community initiatives. And over past several decades, we have raised and distributed more than $1 million for causes like Salvation Army and other vital community partners. Today, our 1,500, almost 1,500 members, we represent about 1,200 registered voters in the city of Glendale. You factor in our families, clients, and extended networks. Our sphere of influence reaches deep into the Glendale electorate, representing thousands of engaged and informed voters. So, nevertheless, this conversation matters. With that said, I would like you to know that you, just like other candidates, will have 2 minutes for an opening statement and 2 minutes at the end for your closing remarks. Time permitting, we are going to be asking you approximately 5 to 6 questions. So if your responses are around 2.5 minutes, I think we'll hit all 6 questions for you, after which you will give us your closing statement. With that said, we are ready for you to begin with your opening statement, Mr. Brotman.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for your endorsement last time I ran in 2022. And I hope to earn it again this time. Many of you know me, but I have many years of experience working in both the public and private sectors. I started my career at the New York Fed and got my training in economics there. And I worked most of my career at Cisco Systems, doing lending, finance, customer finance, basically, lending, leasing, some venture capital, mergers and acquisition and things like that. And then I retired early into education. So I was teaching at Glendale College, teaching economics. I've lived in many cities, large and small, and spent 18 years of my life in Asia. So I have a different perspective than some people that are on the council. I always say that, Glendale has a lot going for it: great schools, safe city, great parks, libraries, open space, and we're a stone's throw from, the second biggest city in the country. So it's something very special that we have. And job number one for me is to make sure we remain a premier city. But we also have very serious long-term issues. As you know, we have a financial budget deficit that we're going to have to grapple with. We have aggressive mandates from the state to make room for more housing. And that's going to come with needs for infrastructure so people can move around safely and effectively. And so we have water and power and all the rest of it. We have a serious issue with speeding and pedestrian safety. And finally, we need to prepare for the hotter, drier, more fire-prone world that we've entered. So these are very serious issues, are very complex issues, and We need people that are serious and can deal with complexity, not people that give you sound bites or easy slogans. None of these things are easy to fix. And anybody that says they are, you should check your wallet. So that's really what I would say. I don't, need to list my endorsements. They're on my website, and I know you've read my, or I hope you've read my questionnaire, because I go into a lot of detail on my positions on many of the things that you're concerned about. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Mr. Brotman. We are going to begin your questions with our president, Drew Garbetian. Drew?
Good morning, Mr. Brotman. My question will be in regards to revenue measures to address Glendale's projected structural budget deficit. Some have proposed placing various revenue measures before voters. Would you support placing any of the following measures on the ballot? And please explain your reasoning if you do. Number one would be parcel tax. Number two would be real estate transfer tax. Number three would be a sales tax increase. And number four would be a vacancy tax on residential or commercial properties. Thank you.
Hello, you there?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if I froze up, but I couldn't hear you. But you were asking about revenue measures.
Revenue measures, and I asked you if you would, in order to fight the budget deficit, would you be in favor of a parcel tax, a real estate transfer tax, a sales tax, or a vacancy tax on residential or commercial properties?
Okay, so what I said in my questionnaire is we have to, obviously what the first thing we do is we look at where we can cut costs, and we're doing that. Our city manager has given staff instructions to find cuts of 8%. I think it's 8%, 5% in the first year and 3% next year. Don't quote me on those numbers, but anyway, I know we've identified about 6 to 8 million in cuts already. They're things around the edges. They're not people, because as you know, we're a service organization, and when we start cutting people, and that's what most of our costs are, we are going to impact services, and that's not something I want to see happen. So we are doing some things. I think that'll get us about a third of the way to closing our structural budget deficit. The rest of the way, I think, is going to have to come from revenues. And I want to start with revenues that are not tax-based. So, we've talked about things like billboards, like EV chargers in the public right-of-way and earning franchise fees from that. I think we can do better parking enforcement. We do get to keep that money, so that's helpful to us. I think we are going to probably have to raise some parking rates downtown and maybe expand where we have parking meters. We have billboards on freeways. We have our parking lots, city-owned parking lots, that I think we should be finding ways to generate revenue from those, and many, many other things, and some longer-term things like our fiber business. I think we can be developing that and selling dark fiber to institutions and commercial companies. Whether we have to go to a tax is something that is TBD. I hope not, but if we do, I'll be honest and tell people about that. We wanted to do a 1/4 cent sales tax, but with what the county is doing now with a 1/2 cent, I just don't think that's something that the public will accept. I think a tax on private parking lots is something that is low-hanging fruit, and I think we can probably get that. It's not going to give us a lot of money, but it's something. But the next thing after that, I think we would look at a business tax if we have to. I don't know that we're going to have to go there, but I think that would be the next thing. I think things like a parcel tax would be a heavier push, and I don't think we need to go there. But I'm not going to close the door on anything. I think anybody that closes the door on anything is not being responsible, because ultimately at the end of the day, we need to close our budget gap. We need to be able to maintain services. I don't want to be like a business that's downsizing. I want to be a business that's growing. And there are positions we need to add. We need to add more in code enforcement. We need to add more in permitting, and a number of other areas in the city. So I'm not going to close the door on anything, but I don't think, I think the end of the list would be a parcel tax. A vacancy tax I really don't know what a vacancy tax does. I would like to understand more. There are different schools of thought as to whether that's going to make a difference. Um, I'll study those things, but I don't think that's not going to be the first thing we do. And hopefully we never have to go there. Hopefully we never have to go to any of these taxes, but we'll see.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate that answer. Next question is going to come from our immediate past president and current LGLR committee chair, Eddie Minassian. Eddie?
Good morning, Councilman.
Hi.
Hi, my question to you is regarding the council district election. Do you support or oppose transitioning Glendale from at-large election to district-based council elections, and why? If you support districts, how many should Glendale have and what criteria should guide the map? If you oppose districts, how would you address the city's CVRA exposure and potential litigation costs?
Okay. Well, I've been clear that I come down in favor of districts. I think there are pros and cons. It's not a slam dunk. I think there are good arguments on both sides. But when I look at the on balance at the issues, I think we would have better governance if we had districts. And I've explained why in other contexts, but I can tell you from my own experience, being able to do proper constituent services is very hard when you are covering a city of 200,000 people. When you have 5 people, it's not clear who has responsibility for what. So I'm a very responsive person. I think everybody knows when they write to me, I respond. When people hold meetings in the community, I go. And so oftentimes I'm running around North Glendale, South Glendale, going to things that other council members don't show up at. It's not tenable. But on the other hand, what if 3 of us show up? So it's not clear who is responsible for what when it comes to that level of services. And I've also said, 3 of us live within walking distance of each other in the Verdugo Woodlands. You know the place you live more intimately than any other place. And having people that are in different parts of the city, I think would strengthen the ties to what's happening locally. So for those reasons, the third reason is I think it takes a lot of the money out of the game, and it lowers the barrier of entry to people coming into seat council seats right now. I have to raise about $150,000. That's pretty obscene. And I think that that problem would be lessened if we had districts. We're the largest city in California, as far as I know, that is not districted, or one of the largest. So that's what I would say. Ultimately, it's going to go to the voters, and the voters are going to decide. I'm just telling you my opinion. But I'll be one vote along with everybody else that votes on this. CVRA, I don't think the exposure, it's very unclear what that exposure is right now because of the lawsuit in Santa Monica, and Burbank is also planning on litigating. So we'll see how that plays out. Your last question was about how many. I like the idea of 6 districts and an elected mayor. I like the elected mayor because it's one at-large seat and kind of can act as a balancing factor when your other districts are all, people are going to be mostly focused on their particular area.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brotman. We are going to go to our current board of directors member, Susan Bruselian, for the next question.
Good morning, Councilman Brotman. Thank you for joining us this morning. This is about housing types and development. In general, which types of housing development do you believe Glendale should be prioritizing? Large apartment buildings, mid-scale multifamily developments that are approximately 8 to 16 units, ownership housing such as single-family homes, condominiums, and townhomes, or a balanced mix depending on the location? Thank you.
Of course, it's a balanced mix, I think. The larger apartment buildings are appropriate downtown, and that's where we've zoned for that. Along some of the commercial corridors, I think we could see more mid-scale townhouses, courtyard apartments, that kind of thing. They're not being built much today, and I think we're going to really need to figure out how do we remove barriers locally that prevent that kind of thing. There are some requirements we have around underground parking that I think make some of those projects infeasible. But we should look at that and also work with the state electeds to see what we can do to make it more economically feasible for missing middle housing to be built. So I see that in the commercial corridors. And then, in the neighborhoods, I think it's really going to be ADUs. That's how we're going to see increased density and increased units is ADUs in the single family neighborhoods. So that's how I see the mix. As far as, I'll say two other things. One is all of us on council, and many of us, disagree on many things, but we all seem to agree on the importance of ownership housing. And we've been talking to our electeds about how we can get, reforms to the defect liability laws, and what are some other things that we can do to encourage more condo development. I really, really think that we need to provide paths to ownership for people that are entering the housing market for the first time. It's not enough just to do, first time home buyer, down payment assistance, because we don't have the stock, and we really need to increase the stock. And the last thing I'll say is I'm very encouraged by the adaptive reuse project on Brand, where we're taking, well, not we, but somebody is taking a commercial building and turning it into housing. And I think we should really figure out how to get more of that done. I know LA has an ordinance, an adaptive reuse ordinance. I've actually raised that on council and asked that well, maybe I haven't raised it on council. I've raised it internally with staff, I think. And have asked that we get some intel on that, on what LA and other cities are doing, to see if we can find ways to make adaptive reuse happen more regularly in the city. So that's how I see it.
Thank you for your responses. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next question comes from our Board of Director member, Carmen Arone. Carmen?
Good morning, Councilman. Thank you for being with us today. My question has to do with the bike lane policy. Do you support or oppose removing vehicle lanes to create bike only lanes, in Glendale? If you support lane reductions, what evidence do you have that voters agree? If you oppose lane reductions, what alternative mobility or safety improvements do you propose? Thank you.
Okay, and as I said in my questionnaire, we never remove lanes for bicycles. It's never the primary reason we remove lanes. We remove lanes. I mean, to be honest, in my 6 years on council, we've never removed a lane. So the only one that's, in fact, in my 6 years in council, I think the only new bike lane we've added is on San Fernando. So there's a lot of talk about bike lanes, but there's really not a lot that's happening. It's, I think, a tempest in a teapot. But anyway, yes, La Crescenta is where we are removing lanes, and we're doing that for safety purposes. We know that there's speeding on that road. We know there's a high collision rate on that road. We know the reason, or at least one of the factors is the fact that there is no center turn lane. When you have a road configured with 2 lanes in either direction, you tend to get a lot of rear ends, side swipes, and broadsides. And by putting a center turn lane in there, we're going to make that road safer. We're going to reduce accidents, and we're going to save lives. So that's why we're doing that project. When you do that, you create space for bike lanes sometimes. And when we do, we should put them in, because that adds safety. And it also is very well known that when there are bikes riding on streets, that also calms traffic and gets cars to drive slower. All this is very well researched. So that's the approach that we take. We're looking at the North Verdugo Road project. Will there be a lane reduction there? It'll depend on safety, and two things really. Is it going to make the road safer, and is it going to come without an undue impact on congestion? So it's always a balancing act. Now, we passed something called the road, what do we call it? I forget the term now, but anyway, it's our guidelines, our road design guidelines, or street design guidelines. I forget what we've called it, where we've laid out, pretty specifically and objectively under what conditions would we consider removing lanes, and so that's, I think, been a positive thing, because I think it should signal to the community how we go about thinking of these things. There's a lot of myth making about the fact that, we have this bicycle transportation plan, we're automatically going to take out all these lanes, and it's really not true. I think you asked for something. Oh, you asked for, how do we do community support? I think we need to do more public polling. We've been doing more of that lately. And, scientific polling is important. When we go and do community meetings and we get people to come in, we're not getting a cross section of the community. So I think we need to do more of going out and seeing what people really think scientifically and take it from there.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that answer. Let's go to our next question, and that is going to be coming from our Government Affairs Director, Mr. Astorian. Correct?
Certainly, and I believe we are going to be talking about publicly owned parking lots, and that has had some, to say the least, controversy in the area, especially in the Rossmoyne and Greenbrier area and Royal Canyon, what have you. So share with us what your thoughts are on that.
Well, we have vacant or underused parking lots that the city owns, and I think it's my responsibility as a steward of public assets to make sure that those are being deployed to their highest and best uses. That goes without saying. So what are those highest and best uses? And can we draw some revenue out of some of those parking lots? And every situation is going to be different, as I said in the questionnaire. We've looked at Montrose. We're looking at the ones around the Civic Auditorium and south of St. Gregory's Church. And we've looked at and continue to look at some downtown. And they're all different. So, Montrose, I've been explaining to people, there are people that spread all kinds of rumors that we're going to remove all the parking and destroy the merchants there. And it's so far from the truth. We're not stupid. We're not going to remove parking in Montrose, right? That parking is heavily used. I go there a lot, and I know that. So whatever we do there would involve replacing parking. Undergrounding that parking is just way too expensive. Building housing around parking, like surface level parking or a structure that's hidden from the public right of way, also very expensive. So I doubt something in Montrose pencils out, but I think we should be looking. I'm always a believer in not closing the door before you've studied something. So that's my view on Montrose. Now, the lot south of St. Gregory's Church, it's 4 acres. It's almost entirely vacant. We're storing public works equipment on it. To me, that's a crime to leave it like that. So we need to do something with it. What that is, I'm open to other uses. I've told people in the community I'm open to other uses if we can either create an important public amenity that doesn't involve the city investing money that we don't have, or we can pull revenue out of it. So if somebody has some great ideas, I'd like to hear them. But I think that is an area that makes sense for a mid-density housing combined with retail, ground floor retail. I think it would make the whole area more walkable and would be a huge amenity to the community. And I would like to see, if possible, that we have some or all of it be ownership housing. And I would like, if possible, that we give kind of first dibs to people that are working at the college. I think it would be a great thing, a great asset, if we had housing that people who are faculty or staff at the college would be using and walking to work. There'd be a restaurant, a grocery store, a coffee shop, a brewery, whatever it might be down on the ground level for people to walk to. I think the reaction is overblown in the community. It's separated from the neighborhood by the Verdugo Wash. It's on a main street. Cars are not going to be going into the neighborhood. Yes, that intersection coming off the 2 at Mountain, that is a challenging intersection. We would have to really think about how we're going to handle congestion there. But other than that, I don't think the worst fears of people that there's going to be, all kinds of, vagrants in the neighborhood and all the kinds of things I hear about, the crime and everything. I just think it doesn't make sense to me. And then I think I said in my questionnaire, downtown, We're going to have to do a parking study and see what the parking need is and how much of that has to be replaced.
All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate it, Mr. Brotman. I just want to let you know that your video and audio at times is a little bit shaky. There is a time lapse every once in a while. If we get disconnected, which hasn't happened yet, but just giving you a heads up that we might get that situation. Your next question is going to come from our LGLR committee member, Kathy Lefkowitz. Kathy?
Hello, Dan. How are you today?
Kathy.
Dan, I wanted to know, do you support or oppose a mandatory rent registry in Glendale? And if you support it, what specific data should be collected, and how would you protect that information in the future? And if you oppose it, what alternative data source should the city rely on for the rental market analysis?
Right. So as you all know, I proposed the rent registry when I first got on council, and there was a big uprising, and I heard it loud and clear, and I backed off of that. So I hope that at least suggests to you that I do listen, and I can change when I get additional information. And part of the additional information came from Greg, who explained that there are other sources that we can use. And I said, I'm open to looking at those other sources and seeing if we can do something that doesn't place a burden on property owners, but gets the city the kind of data that it would like. Now, I still think we don't have enough good data. I would like better data on vacancies. We try to proxy it through the Zillow numbers, and your report is very, very much appreciated. And I've referenced it many times because there are people still that think, those apartment buildings downtown are empty. And I really don't think they are. Better solid data on that. And also, looking in and saying, yes, we have a low vacancy rate. We have, a lot of those apartments are used, but, are many of them corporate apartments? Somebody asked me this the other day. Are they corporations holding these apartments for people that are visiting? And that they're not for, families or individuals that are living there year round? I said, I don't know. It's an interesting question. How would we know that? And I would also like to know more about, evictions. Why are people being evicted? How many people are being evicted? And, where are rents going? So as I've said, if we can find ways to get at this data, and I understand it's not going to be perfect, even a rent registry won't be perfect because not everybody will participate. Let's get the best data we can so we can make wise decisions. I'm a very evidence-based person. I believe in data and making decisions based on the data. So I want to work with you guys, and I hope that we can find better ways to inform our decision making around these issues.
All right. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your answers, Dan. I have seen you for the last 3 days in a row now, and we got to stop doing that, as they say. We do have about 4 minutes. You're more than welcome to take 2 minutes to respond to anything else that you'd like to complete the picture for us. Some things that maybe you would want us to ask you and describe situations. So please take the time to do this.
Yeah, it's frustrating because there's so much that goes out on social media next door that's, in many cases politically motivated, that paints me as somebody who's just trying to, pave the city with bike lanes, and whatever other crazy stuff. I mean, I'm called a communist and this and that. I've had posters go up with my face saying I'm a pedophile. So this is, unfortunately, this is kind of the world we live in. But I hope that you see that I'm, a person that follows the evidence. I dig into policy issues. I listen, and I try to make the best decisions. Of course, I have a vision. I have a vision for a city that's evolving, not standing still, not going backwards. And evolving means we have to address these, longer term issues. We are, under pressure to build more housing, and I believe we do need to build more housing. I'm a believer in the supply and demand argument, and but bringing on supply is going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take a long time. But still, I think that's something we need to do. But as we do that, to the extent that more people are living here, and I hope they are, because that means we're creating jobs here. We want to be a dynamic economy. We want to create jobs, and we want the people, ideally, that take these jobs to be living in the region anyway, and best if they could be living in Glendale. That will reduce our traffic congestion, because a lot of it is related to commuting. It will reduce pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. I think that's a laudable goal that we should aim toward. I think another laudable goal we should aim toward is giving people alternatives to driving. We're going to have more people if everybody is driving the same amount every time they get their eggs or milk or whatever it is they do. We're going to choke on traffic. So we have to be smart about this. I understand that we remain a very car-dependent society, so these changes have to be gradual. And they should be accompanied by better transit services. And so I have some ideas about micro transit, about how to get transit into areas where you're never going to be able to run a full bus line. But these are the longer term things, and I've got this vision, but how you get there is really where we all have to work together. And I've gotten a lot of good input. I mean, particularly from Greg, because Greg is who talks to us the most. But I think Greg, you probably, and I hope you do see that I listen and try to work on finding balanced approaches to things. I'd also say the Grayson project is a good example. I mean, sure, I wanted to get rid of all fossil fuels tomorrow. I would love to. But I learned that we couldn't do that, and ended up voting for 3 fossil fuel engines. And I got beaten up by my friends at the Sierra Club, but I explained to people we have to play the long game. And if we go too far too fast and we make the wrong moves, we invalidate everything that we're trying to accomplish long term. So you got to be smart, you got to be incremental, you got to follow the data, you got to listen to the community, and and I think one of our major failings as a city is we have not told the story well. We don't have a public relations department anymore, and we need one desperately. And we need to be doing a much, much better job of listening and explaining what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I think if we do that, we can bring people along, and that's my goal.
So one just on a note for you. Our association can help your staff on how to tell stories properly. Just wanted to put that outside. So,
and we need help.
Mr. Brotman, we appreciate it.
Very clear from what's going on in the community that we need help telling the story.
Right. And Mr. Brotman, you are the first of the incumbents that we have interviewed so far. Okay. And so you are in a unique position. We don't have our next candidate yet. So if I may just take a minute, some of our questions are very basic and very simple with very simple answers. No one will stand there and say that I'm against supply and demand. No one will stand there and say I'm against balanced development. But the question is, when we talk about these are long-term issues, so when is time for us to address those long-term issues? How come a supply and demand issue that has been in existence for such a long time has not been addressed so far, or we don't see the mechanism about it? I thought that that would be something that maybe we can have a conversation at a later time, but these are the issues that we are hoping to hear from our candidates, enlightening us as to what they see for the future, because obviously certain things do take a long time, but we haven't seen a start of them 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And with that, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here.
Oh, you don't want me to address that now?
Please do so. We still are waiting for the next candidate.
I mean, yes, you're absolutely right. And I mean, that's why I understand why the state is coming down on the cities so hard, because, cities have resisted building new housing. And the state has lost patience. And unfortunately, it's taking a broad brush approach and kind of hammering everyone equally, regardless of what they're doing locally. I think we've been a reasonably good actor. I don't think we've been, blameless ourselves, but I think we've done more than some other cities for sure. So I would like to see the state come with more carrots and fewer sticks and be more, appreciative of the work we've done. But nonetheless, that's the fundamental problem, is that, at the local level, people don't want more people, right? But we're creating jobs. We want vibrant economies. The two don't go together. So we have to be honest about this. We have to understand that we do need more housing. And it's an uphill battle, which we all know it's an uphill battle. And I'm, proposing housing on a vacant 4-acre lot, gets the kind of reaction it does. This is the problem we face. This is why the problem has not been solved. And we just have to keep pushing on that. We have to do it carefully. We have to do it, in a way that's not going to backfire. But we have to, play the long game, as I say, and get there. And transportation is the same way. There's really a good understanding now among traffic designers, planners, and more engineers that the way we've designed our streets just leads to speeding and pedestrian accidents and deaths, and cars are bigger. People inside cars feel more safe because the cars are bigger, the airbags and everything, right? And so people drive faster, and that means people outside of the car are less safe. So we really have to be rethinking how we design our streets. It's not, the goal number one should not be throughput and speed. It should be safety. And so we have to start moving in that direction. These things take a very, very long time. There's always resistance to change. We have to move slowly, and we have to bring people along. That's where the explanation is so important. And all these things are hard things. And people say, well, why haven't you solved them in the last 6 years you've been on council? These things don't get fixed in 6 years, right? And they only get fixed if people are on the same page, and we haven't been on the same page about these things. So I could go on and on. I'm sure
We appreciate that.
Talking.
No, this is not an easy conversation. Otherwise, instead of 12 candidates this year, we would have 120 candidates, probably. Thank you so much for your presence and your answers.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.